morning, everyone. My name is Manny Katra, Public Information Officer here at Puritan Police. Before we begin, if I could please ask everyone to turn off their cell phones. On behalf of Puritan Police, I would like to thank you all for joining us today here at Cassie Campbell Community Center for an important announcement. We begin today by first acknowledging that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. At the conclusion of this announcement, there will be an opportunity for questions. I would ask that you limit your questions specific to this news conference and limit your questions to one with a single follow-up. I will be available after this announcement for any other inquiries or requests. A media release will be issued shortly after the conclusion of this conference and will include links to all the information provided here today. A full video of this news conference will be made available on our Puritan Police YouTube channel. Today, we will hear from the following speakers: Chief Nishan Duraiappah, Detective Alan Dean from the Central Robbery Bureau, Deputy Chief Nick Molinovich, Investigative and Emergency Services Command, and MPP Graham McGregor, Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of the Solicitor General. I would now like to call Chief Nishan Duraiappah to the podium. Chief.
Thank you, Manny, and good morning. Thank you for joining us. I do want to thank all of you for attending for this important announcement. Today we're releasing the outcome of an investigation that has been dubbed Project Warlock. This project was led by our Central Robbery team, who is behind us. You can see the investigators, which we'll be speaking to shortly. But specifically, this organization that was involved in carjackings, home invasions, robberies, were active here in Peel Region and throughout the Greater Toronto Area. As mentioned earlier, joining me is Detective Alan Dean from our Robbery Bureau, as well as Deputy Chief Nick Molinovich, who oversees our Investigative and Emergency Services Command. I want to thank MPP Graham McGregor for again being with us to support these investigations. Needless to say, I think we all know the community has been impacted by an increase in home invasions and violent carjackings right across this community and the Greater Toronto Area. And just to be clear, what this means is in 2024, right here in Peel Region, we have experienced 87 carjackings. In addition to that, we have had 54 home invasions in Peel Region. And just to accentuate the impact, that means that's a 58% increase in carjackings and an astounding 350% increase in home invasions year over year. These violent incidents, needless to say, have impact not just on the victims that are targeted, but the entire community around them. And that is why we are here, not in a police facility, but standing in one of these communities that was affected by this. Right here in this community right behind us, we've had 3 of these specific home invasions occur. The reason we're here is also to let the community know that we will not tolerate these incidents, that we will follow up, pursue, investigate, and arrest those that are involved and charge them. This, in fact, is a symbol of us taking back this community and making sure that it will not be tolerated here in Peel Region, and that we will continue to devote the resources that we need to stop these individuals that endanger the lives of those. And this project is another example of the remarkable work our men and women do here in Peel Region. Since late 2023 and into the spring of this year, investigators with the Central Robbery Unit have been investigating several home invasions, carjackings, and robberies with this organized criminal network. These offenses have not only occurred in Brampton and Mississauga, but also in other municipalities, as you will hear. They were targeting high-end vehicle and luxury items. In total, 17 incidents in Peel Region, many of which have affected families. And just to be specific, the home invasions have involved individuals waking up to firearms being presented to them in their beds, children's at home being traumatized. I have had the opportunity, thanks to Deputy Milanovic, to read a couple of the victim impact statements of the individuals. It has forever changed the lives of some of these families and the children on the way they live on a day-to-day basis. And the compromise on public safety goes beyond just the numbers that we're quoting to you. The ripple impact that we all know is one which deserves a strong response from a police service. I'm pleased to share that through the dedicated work of this team that is behind us, and I have to say, we often have the pleasure of standing in front to announce these arrests, but it comes from the tireless work of these investigators that are some of the finest in this country. We have arrested 18 individuals that are believed to be responsible for these crimes and laid over 150 charges. In addition to these arrests, our investigators have seized 4 firearms, 3 of which we have been able to successfully trace to the U.S., an additional 2 replica firearms and ammunition that came along with it. Also seized was $55,000 in luxury items recovered during the investigation, as well as 12 vehicles valued at approximately $1.2 million that were either used as crime vehicles or as a result of the carjackings and home invasions. Again, I want to extend my appreciation to the investigators from Central Robbery Unit for their tireless work. As you can see, they're a small but mighty team. They're also supplemented with an officer with the assistance from the Ontario Provincial Police, who I want to thank, Commissioner Tom Creek, as well as the Provincial Joint Carjacking Task Force, which aided the investigation. The assistance of York Regional Police, Waterloo Regional Police, and Barrie Police on this investigation have also been very appreciated. These investigations can't be done alone. They require numerous resources, and with that, we are pleased to be supported by the Ontario government and the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and thank you to Director Jim Walker of the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario for supporting this investigation. We also are very appreciative here in Peel for the support of our Peel Police Services Board, which continues to support us with resources to put a dent in violent crime in this community. I want to conclude before I pass it on to the investigators is just to address the innocent victims that are impacted by these terrible crimes. We understand the unease and the trauma that you all feel. We share your concern. I want you to know, on behalf of Peel Regional Police, we will do everything in our power to continue to arrest and stop these individuals, to seize firearms from them, and to ensure that these criminals do not victimize our community anymore. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Detective Alan Dean of our Central Robbery team to provide further details on this investigation. Al?
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. My name is Acting Detective Alan Dean of the Central Robbery Bureau, and I'm the lead investigator of Project Warlock. While the investigation into these people responsible for these crimes is nearing completion, other portions of the investigation are still ongoing. As a result, I may not be able to answer questions about certain aspects of this investigation. Between November of 2023 and January of 2024, 8 violent robbery incidents occurred in Brampton. These included home invasions, carjackings, and commercial robberies. The suspects targeted jewelry, currency, designer clothing, and luxury vehicles. During the course of one home invasion, a victim sustained a life-threatening gunshot wound to his lower body. The initial investigations into these 8 incidents identified an organized criminal network based in Brampton and Mississauga as being responsible for these robberies. The discovery led to the creation of Project Warlock. The project team from the Central Robbery Bureau utilized various investigative techniques and invested thousands of hours gathering evidence. Throughout the 6-month investigation, an additional 9 robbery incidents that occurred in Peel Region were also linked to this criminal network. Investigators arrested 18 individuals, laid 150 criminal charges, and executed over 60 search warrants. 12 stolen vehicles valued over $1.2 million were recovered, in addition to $55,000 worth of stolen property. 4 loaded prohibited handguns were seized. 3 of the firearms originated from the United States. The fourth had the serial number removed and is yet to be traced at this time. 97 rounds of ammunition, numerous high-capacity magazines, and 2 replica firearms were also seized. In addition to the robbery charges, some of the involved parties have been charged with breach of release orders, breach of probation, firearm offenses, drug possession and trafficking offenses, breach of trust, intimate partner violence-related charges, and possession of property obtained by crime. The following individuals were identified and arrested. Nania Quarton, a 21-year-old from Mississauga. Mark Obahat, a 19-year-old from Brampton. Josiah Farrell, a 21-year-old from Brampton. Kashawn Grenier, a 21-year-old from Brampton. Tyrese Williams, a 24-year-old from Brampton. Patrick Kubu, a 19-year-old from Brampton. Isaiah Grenier, a 19-year-old from Brampton. Mohammed Muhib, a 23-year-old from London. Ayub Abdi, a 22-year-old from Milton. O'Neill Antubam, a 23-year-old from Mississauga. Brianna Nash, a 26-year-old from Brampton. Tashawn Kirkhover, a 24-year-old from Brampton. Antoine Betty, a 27-year-old from Brampton. Inderpal Dillon, a 26-year-old from Brampton. And 3 young persons aged between 14 and 17. The investigation also uncovered evidence for an additional 2 robberies outside of Peel Region. This information was shared with a partnering law enforcement agency, and as a result, an additional 51 criminal charges were laid. The successful completion of this investigation was made possible through funding provided by the Ontario Government, Ministry of the Solicitor General, in which the Criminal Intelligence Services of Ontario supported the Peel Regional Police Central Robbery Bureau. We would also like to recognize the communication and collaboration involving our law enforcement partners, including York Police, Waterloo Police, Ontario Provincial Police, Barrie Police, and the Provincial Carjacking Task Force. I would now like to turn it over to Deputy Chief Nick Milinovich to provide further comments.
Thank you, and good morning. I would like to start by adding my congratulations to really the investigative team that you are seeing standing behind me today. They've done some incredible work. We appreciate your determination towards protecting our community safety, and you have demonstrated that commitment through, as you've heard, thousands of hours of work. In addition to that, you've also demonstrated perseverance to overcome and address many of the barriers towards doing that work. This investigation has all the hallmarks of the issues affecting our community safety. It included the use of illegal firearms. Access to illegal firearms is becoming too prevalent. This year alone, our police service has seized almost 200 illegal firearms. On average, that's 1 per day. And nearly all of the firearms that are used in carjackings and home invasions are illegal firearms that are illegally smuggled through the U.S. This was the case as well with Project Warlock, as you've heard. You've also heard us talk about organized car theft. It continues to be an issue in our community. While we have worked hard on enforcement and advocating on behalf of our community, car theft continues to be an issue and is trending towards becoming more violent. Criminals are, as in Project Warlock, becoming increasingly violent and resorting to carjackings and home invasions. When these concerns are coupled with violent offenders who have been released on bail, it results in scenarios like Project Warlock. To be clear, a small percentage of violent criminals is creating the majority of violent crime. 6 of the 8 individuals in this investigation that were arrested had previous charges and were on various forms of release. 15 of the 8 arrested in this project were held for bail by the investigative team that you see behind us. Of the 15 held for bail, more than half have been released. But despite these challenges around firearms, repeat offenders, and car theft. The investigators that you see behind us and the women and men of our police service continue to do their best, putting their own safety aside to protect our community's safety, community that we're in today. As the chief said, if criminals target our community, they can expect to be arrested, and we will pursue them until we resolve those investigations and restore feelings of community safety and well-being to our community, much like the one we're in today. I would also like to thank all the assisting law enforcement partners that helped on Project Warlock, particularly the Ontario Provincial Police and the Provincial Carjacking Task Force. We are grateful to the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario for their continued funding, support of our investigations. And of course, I would like to thank our Police Services Board, our region, and our community. They provide us the support and momentum necessary to see the results that we're enjoying today. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Graham McGregor, MPP for Brampton North and Parliamentary Assistant to the Solicitor General of Ontario.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here at Cassie Campbell with so many esteemed guests, but also some real heroes in the investigative team that's behind me this morning. Today's announcement of Project Warlock, coming just 1 week after the announcement of Project Chrome, is a perfect example of why it's such a good idea to fund police properly. The Doug Ford government takes a lot of hits for the support that we provide police. We put funding and rules in place to make it easier to recruit and train new police officers. We've invested in equipment to help them do their jobs, like automatic license plate readers or excitingly new helicopters coming for GTA police services. And we've invested in health and mental health supports to make life a little bit easier and a little bit better when the shift's over. When we make these investments, inevitably there are politicians and other public figures who are quick to criticize. They argue we shouldn't be funding the police the way that we are, that the funding would be better spent somewhere else. Heck, sometimes they just tell us to abolish the police altogether. I challenge those people to take a look at the charges laid in Project Warlock and tell me that the Peel Police aren't worth every damn penny the taxpayers spend on them. Our government is proud to have supported Project Warlock through the Ministry of the Solicitor General, specifically the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario, at a time when many residents feel unsafe. Announcements like these help us all sleep a little bit easier. But now to address the elephant in the room. When I was briefed on Project Warlock, I was dismayed to hear that several of the suspects in custody were arrested while out on bail. And this is a story that residents are sick and tired of hearing. Repeat and violent offenders who continue to walk our streets because of the revolving door justice system. I hear from police regularly about catching the same criminal 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And to hear that today police are arresting the same people who've already been previously arrested breaks my heart. Project Warlock involves 18 arrests, 150 criminal code charges laid. That's 17 violent home invasions, armed robberies, and carjackings, guns and knives used against innocent people. Shame on our society if these individuals are allowed out on bail to do it again. I understand that it's the role of judges to interpret the law and make rulings. It's not a politician's business to get involved, fine. But the criminal code that they're interpreting is written by politicians, specifically the federal politicians that we have in Ottawa. Premier Ford wrote a letter over a year and a half ago, signed by all 13 provinces and territories in Canada, calling on Prime Minister Trudeau to implement meaningful bail reform. We have continued to see a revolving door justice system ever since. On behalf of the Ontario government, I'm echoing that call here today. We have 11 Liberal MPs here in Peel Region who represent the governing party. I hope that they're listening. I hope they're advocating to the Prime Minister to do the right thing. We've heard from the police on this, but put yourself in a victim's shoes. Imagine an armed scumbag breaks into your home, puts a gun to your head. Police do their jobs and catch the guy who did it. You expect him to go to jail, only you see him at the gym the next day because the lax criminal code let him out on bail. Enough is enough. Ontario has done its part. Peel has done its part. Peel Police, they've gone above and beyond what anybody could reasonably expect of them. We need the federal government to do their part. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
We are now open to many questions if you like.
First of all, Chief, this is Shubi from My Media. One, I wanted to congratulate you guys on this project, and just for the viewers' benefit, I wanted to know, are there more initiatives and more projects like this that you guys will be rolling out?
So the question was, do we anticipate more projects being announced in the near future? I can tell you that if you've been watching what we've been doing in the media the last short while, every police agency is conducting investigations regarding crimes that are occurring in their community. We have made a concerted effort in this last year and two to ensure that we do as many of these as possible. Clearly, we're responding to the notable trends, whether they be carjackings, home invasions, firearms offenses, or significant high-profile incidents. But we absolutely do, and we're dependent. I can tell you, we're dependent on support. These officers here have diverted their attention from other serious offenses to investigate these 18 individuals. While we're sitting here, there are more coming in that they will be shifting to. We do anticipate other initiatives and projects and announcements coming in the near future. The reason we're doing that is to let the community know that when these incidents occur in the community, there is a significant amount of work that follows suit. There are arrests, charges, there are lengthy court processes that happen, and we do see success in the court process with convictions. Some of them unfortunately do get released, but it's important for the community to know that when we do these announcements, it's not just for showing headshots or the value of the dollars of things that are stolen. It's to let them know, particularly picking a community location to come out and tell them, is that we are doing everything possible to turn the dial down on these pressures.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Chief. This is Nitin Chopra from Prime Minister TV. We have heard MPP Graham McGregor, we have heard Deputy Chief Nick, and we have heard you about the challenges. Challenges of revolving doors, challenging of all these criminals which we see today. First of all, salute to the investigators also. How many of them were repeated offenders, and how many of them are already out again? So if out of 18, if number can be shared.
Alan, you want to?
Yeah, so just in regards to the number of individuals, we arrested, as I said, 18 in total. Of the 18, we held 15 for bail hearings. Of those 15 held, 9 have since been released on conditions into the community. Prior to the investigation, Project Warlock, 6 of the individuals were on release orders from the courts.
Follow-up is, yes, Chief,
Sorry.
if you can explain us where is the disconnect. Reason is, like recently we interacted with the Honorable Arif Virani, who is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. We asked them about this question, that why we are releasing people like the repeated offenders out again and again. And their answer was, we amended the criminal code twice, one last year and one this year in January. But we see where are the results? Results are the same. Police and investigators are doing their best, because we are standing in between the community, and I will expect if you can answer where is the disconnect, and also if MPP McGregor can also add into that. We are putting everything on the federal MPs, and none of them is present here today. We want an answer from them also. Like if community wants, police want, our politician wants, province wants, city wants this crime to be handled, keep criminals behind the jail, and why our MPs are absent, they are not present, or they don't attend the media about these changes in the criminal code. Where are the results? Thank you.
Thank you. And so very, very quickly, every chief in Ontario, including myself and the OPP commissioner, have been very vocal in the last year and a half, 2 years, as it relates to recommended changes, not just federally, but to the way the courts operate and how bail is seen for repeat violent offenders. Just to be clear, we're not talking about everybody. We're talking, as Deputy Nick mentioned, the small amount that create the biggest harm. We have seen some changes come into effect this calendar year in the criminal code. It is, in my opinion, a little early to see how that's materializing as it relates to trends. But to answer your question about where the disconnect is, you can write legislation. My officers can lay the charges. Our Crown attorneys do an amazing job. They are essentially overburdened and stretched as well. But the application of how the law and the framework is still in the hands of the judicial system. And, there are many factors involved when it comes by a case-by-case basis to release somebody on a form of release or on bail or to keep them in custody. But it really comes down to the individual that is in the courtroom and their application of the framework that's set before them. And, without me going down too far, and probably MPP McGregor can say a bit more than I can, that's where it needs to change. The harm that is being caused by releasing individuals versus the risk of keeping them in custody is disconnected. And we're seeing individuals, we've seen the auto theft cases where somebody's been involved with a violent carjacking, they're in a courtroom, they're released, and they steal a car in the parking lot of a courtroom. That happens right here in Peel. Or they're back out committing an offense. So the disconnect is, in my view, part of the whole ecosystem needs to be tightened.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Nitin. And I echo the chiefs. Our position in Ontario, it's not we're not saying that nobody should get bail ever, but when you see violent and repeat offenders out again and again and again, put yourself in a victim's shoes. A victim of a violent carjacking, a gun to your head in front of your family. The trauma for your family and your kids, and the trauma that you go through. And Peel Police, we've got, I'm biased as a Brampton boy, but we've got the best police service in Ontario and in Canada right here. The investigative team behind me, the team that we have here at Peel Police, they're heroes. They do their jobs. But imagine police do their jobs, they catch the bad guy that did it, and you think you're finally going to see justice, only to see, a video of them out at a gym a week later, or to hear that they stole a car on their way out of the courthouse. So I just respectfully, I'd say to the federal government, what they've done has not done enough. We need meaningful bail reform. We need action. Enough is enough. And we need meaningful action today. Thanks.
Good morning. My question's for the acting detective on Project Warlock. Bit of a broad question, but are you able to speak to specifics? How this organized crime network actually functioned? How did they target the individuals? Were they looking for the luxury vehicles and the cash and the jewelry they had?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, some of those aspects are still under investigation, so I can't elaborate too much. I can say that they were an organized group. There were additional parties outside of the 18 that we charged that we identified as being associated to this group. They would operate very similar to what you would consider a street level gang. They frequented known areas, and their association usually seemed to center around some sort of crime. As far as it goes to how they targeted specific individuals, I can't get into those specifics right now, but they were an organized group.
My second.
You think Nick's going to talk about it?
Sorry, I would just compliment that. I've had the opportunity to be briefed about the investigation and appreciate the need for investigative consideration to what can and can't be answered. But what I will say is, and I've said this before, the reality between this project and many others we've seen is you have organized crime that will always look for and exploit the vulnerabilities. They look for opportunities to identify people who they can victimize, and the reality is very similar in this scenario, much like many other projects. It's about what's motivating them. So in this case, luxury items, vehicles, and the tools of the trade are firearms. So really those are the similarities that we see here in Project Warlock and continue to see throughout many of the large-scale projects that we do.
My next question's for the chief. I wanted to ask you about the ages of some of the suspects. I mean, they all seem quite young, quite a few 19-year-olds, but I'm seeing a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old. How concerning is that for you in your community to see these young people alleged to be involved in organized crime?
We're seeing the age of those involved in violent offenses like on the street, carjackings, auto theft, or the home invasions. Now, it's very common to see a wide range, but to see very young individuals. And, the easiest thing to characterize it is that it is easy for those that are at a vulnerable point to see opportunities to make cash quickly or to be involved in, I don't want to diminish the harm from these type of offenses, but they're almost very effortless violent crimes, right? They're random people, the people that are targeted and identified, and to co-opt and bring young people into these type of activities is all too common. So it does as a whole, on our reflection on what this means for the community and society when you see a young person involved, shows sort of a slow erosion of how the safety net of how young people are involved in activities or can be exploited or easily brought into activities is a concern. I don't think I can say probably in the last decade we've never seen to this extent the sheer volume of young people being involved in criminal activity to the extent that we're seeing now.
Any further questions?
Mind if I ask one more? I just overall wanted to know, every single day we're hearing about carjackings, home invasions. You mentioned the community is terrorized and there's kids involved here. How big of an impact, how big of a dent do you think you put in this Project Warlock, in the organized crime you're seeing in the community right now?
So, I think without a doubt, attacking one group of individuals and disrupting them, hopefully for longer than what we see these days is impactful, because it not only has a ripple effect, the word gets out, the message gets out that Peel is actively involved in it. Do we expect that everybody's going to stop because of one project? Absolutely not. I think we've seen some federal announcements about the reduction in auto theft rates. I can tell you that even though there may be micro trends here and there, we're still seeing almost 16 to 18 vehicles stolen a day here in Peel. That's just shy of one an hour. Many of them are violent, and despite our best efforts for prevention, for vehicles to not be stolen, you can see a shift, as I mentioned to you earlier, 350% increase in carjackings or home invasions, and 87% is less vehicles may be being stolen, but the method that they're being stolen is changing more dominantly to violent offenses. So, the dent is significant for us, but I can tell you that probably today we're going to experience another violent theft of auto in the form of a robbery. And, the continued need for, these are 6 individuals that conducted this investigation. Can you imagine the volume of vehicles, particularly here in Peel and the GTA, requires a tremendous amount of resources when we have so many other pressures here in the community. So the reason we do these announcements is to draw attention to this trend, not only to show a response, but the fact that we're concerned that this is a violent trend that we're seeing not just here in Peel but across the GTA.
This concludes today's press conference. Once again, thank you for attending.